This house feels empty now in a way it never did before. Just 30 minutes ago, the phone was ringing off the hook, echoing through these quiet rooms. My own mother's voice had become a weapon, sharp and unexpected. And it all comes down to a single number. $5,000. That was the price they tried to put on my son's life. Right after they couldn't even be bothered to show up for him. It all began in a different kind of quiet, the heavy silence of a hospital room. The steady beep of the heart monitor was the only sound, marking the slow, agonizing passage of time. My little Leo, just 7 years old, looked so small, swallowed up by that big hospital bed, lost in a web of tubes and wires. The doctors said his heart had a tiny, fixable hole. But any surgery, any anesthesia, feels like climbing a mountain when it's your child. I sat there, holding his small, limp hand, waiting for the sun to rise on what I knew would be the most difficult day of our lives. I had called my family, of course. My parents, my sister. I told them the time and date, my voice breaking as I spoke. I begged them, please just be there. My mother's reply was a little too cheerful, a little too bright. She said they would try, but you know how busy your father is. There was a pause on the line then, a hesitation that felt wrong. But I was so consumed by my own fear that I didn't piece it together. I just clung to the hope that they would come. The morning of the surgery, the hospital waiting room was its own special kind of hell. The chairs were uncomfortable, the coffee was terrible, and every second felt like an hour. My eyes were glued to the door, my heart jumping into my throat every time it swung open. But it was never them. It was always a nurse, or a doctor, or a stranger. The clock on the wall ticked past 9, then 9:30. Leo was already in the operating room, and I was completely alone. 2 hours into the wait, my phone finally vibrated. It was a text from my sister. Not a phone call. Just a text. It said they were sorry, but something had come up with our mom. It asked how it was going. How it was going. My son's heart was being operated on by strangers, and something came up? The cold, hard truth settled in my stomach like a stone. They were not coming. They had chosen not to be here. But then a shift. A miracle. Dr. Evans came out, his face relaxed, a small smile on his lips. He said the words that brought me to my knees with relief. He did great. He's a fighter. The crushing weight I had carried for weeks finally lifted. Leo was safe. He was going to be okay. The first phone call came 2 days later. We were home. Leo was tucked into his own bed, his breathing easier and deeper than I had heard in years. When I saw my mother's name light up my phone, I took a deep, steadying breath before answering. Her voice was all sunshine and light. "Oh honey," she said, "we've been thinking of you. How is our little champ doing?" Our little champ. The phrase felt hollow and false. I kept my voice neutral, telling her he was recovering, that it had been a long and difficult day. There was a pause on her end, and I could feel the conversation shifting. She said they were in a bind. And then she said it. The number. She told me they needed to borrow $5,000. The air rushed out of my lungs. It wasn't a request. It felt like a demand. I was so shocked that a short, bitter laugh escaped me. "You need $5,000? From me?" Her voice instantly tightened, turning cold. "Don't you take that tone with me," she snapped. "It's for a family matter. It's important." "A family matter," I repeated, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. "Is that what we're calling Leo's open heart surgery now?" The line went completely silent. When she spoke again, her voice was icy. "That is a completely separate issue," she said. "This is about supporting your family when they need you." I looked down the hallway toward Leo's slightly open door. I could hear the soft, rhythmic sound of his sleeping breath. And in that moment, something inside me hardened, solidified into an unshakable resolve. "No, Mom," I said. My voice was quiet, but it was absolute. "The answer is no." The silence that followed was louder and more violent than any scream. Then came the sputtering, the disbelief. "What did you just say to me?" she demanded. I said no, I repeated, my tone even. "Every single penny I have is for Leo's recovery, for the medical bills that are still arriving. I am not giving you a dime." My calmness seemed to shatter her completely. "After everything we have done for you," she shrieked. "We raised you. We clothed you. This is how you repay us? By being selfish? The word hung in the air between us, poisonous and utterly absurd. She was calling me selfish for protecting my son. The call ended with a deafening slam. But the siege was only beginning. My father called next, his voice a low, threatening rumble about respect and family duty. Then my sister called, playing the part of the peacemaker. Can't you just help them out? You know how they are. You're causing so much unnecessary drama. I listened to them all, saying very little. Their true colors were on full display, painting a vivid picture of their betrayal. The final blow came from an unfamiliar number. It was my uncle, my father's brother. His voice was grave and solemn. He said my parents were deeply hurt. He said they were telling everyone I had chosen money over family. And then he delivered the masterstroke, the threat that turned my blood to ice. He said if I didn't reconsider, they were going to consult a lawyer about suing for grandparents' rights. They felt I was alienating them from Leo. I sank into a kitchen chair, the world tilting on its axis. Grandparents' rights? This was no longer about money. This was a declaration of war. They were threatening to use the legal system to force their way back into my son's life, to claim a piece of him after abandoning him in his most vulnerable moment. The audacity was breathtaking. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I simply spoke, my voice low and steady, each word chosen with precision. You tell them to go ahead and try, I said. They skipped his life-saving surgery. I have the text messages. I have the phone records. I have an entire hospital staff who saw me sitting alone for hours. Let them bring their lawyer. We will see who a judge believes truly has Leo's best interests at heart. The silence on the other end of the line was total, complete. I ended the call. The phone, for the first time in days, stayed silent. Weeks slowly turned into a month. The constant barrage of calls and messages stopped. And the silence eventually became our new normal. Leo was healing beautifully, his energy returning, the scar on his chest fading to a faint silver line. We were in the backyard one evening, and he was chasing fireflies as the sun set, his laughter ringing through the air like the most beautiful music. The side gate creaked open. I looked up, my body tensing instinctively. It was my sister, Sarah. She stood there alone, wringing her hands, not saying a word. Her eyes weren't on me. They were fixed on Leo, watching him run through the grass, and they were glistening with tears. I'm sorry, she whispered. The words were so simple, so raw, that they cut through all my defenses. I was wrong, she said. Mom and Dad, they're wrong. They're embarrassed, and now they're just too stubborn to admit it. But I'm sorry I wasn't there for you. And for him. She watched him for one moment longer, then turned and walked back out the gate without another word. It wasn't a full reconciliation. It didn't fix everything. But it was a crack of light under a heavy, closed door. It was a single, honest admission in a sea of lies and manipulation. I never gave them the $5,000. But in the end, I received something far more valuable. I learned the immense power and necessity of the word no. I learned that family is not just a title you are born into. It is a conscious choice you make every single day. It is about showing up. It is about holding someone's hand in the quiet, terrifying moments of a hospital waiting room. My family of origin made their choice. They chose to be absent in our most fragile hour. And then they had the audacity to demand a reward for that absence. And in their cruel refusal to be a real family, they gave me the greatest gift they possibly could have. They gave me the unwavering, absolute certainty that the family I built myself, the one that revolves around my son's laughter and his peaceful breathing at night, is the only family that truly matters. This quiet in our home is no longer heavy. It is peaceful. It is the sound of a battle being over, and the sound of our life, our real life, finally being allowed to begin.